Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about cleaning your fuel injectors. We're breaking down the Acura CL all the way down to the injector level and we're rebuilding it. And today we're going to talk about cleaning your injectors. This is something basic. It seems very daunting, but it's very simple. I'm going to show you how I go ahead and clean fuel injectors with just basic parts and some basic kind of DIY ingenuity to clean those injectors. And then you can do this routinely as you see fit. Anytime that you have a situation where you think the injector may be fouled or clogged, this could apply as a quick fix for you in just a weekend's time. So I'm also going to go in depth about how we rebuild the injectors, the seals, and then reinstall those. Important thing to note on this video, we're playing around with some of the video and microphones based on feedback from you. It looked like in post-production or in pre-production that it was working well, but in post-production it ended up not coming through as clean as I would like it to be. So I'm going to narrate those sections of the video so that you don't have to suffer through the low quality and the low volume of that video capture. I can't do anything about the video, unfortunately, but I will narrate the parts of the video where I think the audio was too low or too low quality to actually come through and be good in the post-production. So sit back and enjoy, and hopefully you guys will learn something in this video. Okay, so you'll want to disconnect your injectors right here by just simply pushing on the tabs and then disconnecting them. Got one disconnect there. There we go. So we've got those out of our way, and then we'll use 8mm socket here to remove the fuel rail itself. Two 8mm bolts hold the fuel rail onto the intake runner. Move that out. And then we'll go ahead and take a look real quick. Looks like everything's good. So these theoretically should just pop right out. There we go. And yeah, so we can see that these injectors definitely are dirty, and they will definitely need to be resealed, as well as the orifices that they drop down into. So just go ahead and take these and twist on them out. They should just kind of twist out here. Since they're a tight seal, it's going to take a little bit of effort, but there we go. A little bit of water, or I'm sorry, a little bit of gasoline may drip out. That's fine. And these should be all the same, so it doesn't matter if you keep them in order or not. It shouldn't, anyways. We've got these gaskets are really old, and these injectors definitely look like they could use a cleaning. So we'll go ahead and do that. That'll be part of this series of showing you how to do that. And then just make sure you don't drop anything down into the intake runner itself, because you won't be getting it out, or at least you'll be fishing it out. Oh, look at that. So our injector was actually falling apart. There's little plastic ends on it, and it actually just broke right off. So that's just years of just use. The plastic just becomes so brittle. So just keep that in mind, that you may have to get new injectors depending on the condition of your injectors if you do this. So we'll go ahead and take a look at the other injectors too, but it looks like we're already going to have to get one new injector here. And so all of these injectors look pretty much the same. It's ironic though that we have the same gasket stuck on this side as we do on this side. Yeah, so it's only one injector thus far that seems to be pretty brittle. Injector. Okay, there we go. That's all of our injectors out. You want to take your pocket screwdriver here and try to eject those O-rings for the injectors. There we go. Okay, and that will do it for the first phase of this project. Gone ahead and taken everything down. We've got everything apart, everything is set out the way I like it right now. And now we're going to go ahead and clean the intake manifold and clean the injectors and just take a very good assessment of what needs to be cleaned out of where this far. Okay, so here's our setup for cleaning the injectors. I have a can of carb cleaner connected to a tubeless tire valve, TR413 by Slime. Anyone will do as long as you get the right diameter, which is 0.45 with a rim hole apparently, and 1 1/4 inch long. That slips over the end of the injector here to give you a nice tight fit so that you can then take the valve and put just a big enough hole to slide your spray can tip into this. So you'll get it right at the end of the barrel here and then poke through so that the top end is sealed, the bottom end is sealed, and you're coming in at the side of it. So I'll show that real quick. You can see here we got that coming through, and now we've got our injector connected with just some cheap Honda equivalent pigtails. And if you didn't want to use a pigtail, you could just connect the injector. There's a positive side indication on the side of your injector, and then the opposite would be a negative, and you could just use alligator clips to clip onto that. I went ahead and just got these going, and then at the other end you have, or I have, the pigtail connected with some alligator clips to a 9-volt battery. 9-volt battery is probably all you need because you're just looking to take the positive end and touch it to the end of the injector. So you squeeze the can and then touch the end to the injector here. And that's just activating that injector so that you're running the carb cleaner through it. And then once you're done with it, you can unplug your pigtail. So this injector is probably clean at this point, or I would imagine it would be. And then we just take that valve off of your injector. Now this is the broken one from the other day when I was removing these. This got fouled, so we have a new injector coming in. And then you would just go on to your next injector. You would slip over the valve right here, and then you would connect your pigtail to it. And then what I usually do is take the tip from the can and just insert it into it, and then connect it to your can. Press it a couple times. Got a loose connection there. Just want to make sure you get a good connection. And then there we go. So that injector is clean now. And then you would move on to the next one. And that's how you can clean your injectors without having a professional kit, and just basic parts and pieces kind of hobbled together. You know, the 9-volt battery, you probably have one laying around. I ended up having to buy one. The pigtails, if you opt to go this way, a set of 6 of them were $10, but you could also, probably just do with one if you could find one locally. I wasn't able to find one locally. And then the Presta valves, or not the Presta valves, but the Schrader valve kit, the TR13, was like $6. So the kit altogether maybe like $15, plus your carb cleaner. And that's how you can clean your injectors fairly easy at home, doing it yourself. So we're at the point where we want to replace the fuel injector gaskets on the ones that came within the engine, and I have my OEM one that I purchased that you can see as a mock-up here. So basically we just need to mimic this injector with the other ones. And what I've done is got the BECK ARNLEY one. It's a kit and it has all the gaskets supposedly in it. It's the same, and because the cost of this is more beneficial, it's easier to go ahead and buy 6 of these instead of like one OEM gasket from the entire kit. So I went ahead and used this, and that's because a lot of the OEM manufacturers actually use BECK ARNLEY. But what I end up discovering is that one of the O-rings is not the correct size for our fuel injectors. So I had to source one for my personal kit that actually ended up fitting. So it's important to note, keep a couple gaskets on. And this is one at the bottom that I'm showing right here. It's basically just a little too loose, and so when you fit it in, it ends up just kind of crimpling up a little bit, and that ends up being a problem when you're trying to insert the gasket with the injector on it and into the hole in which it goes into. So the other thing is like it's a one-size-fit-all kind of kit, and so you run up against the fact that it didn't fit our injectors. Now this kit probably fits like maybe 90% of it, because you can see that it's got a couple extra gaskets that will come in there. And what we need to do at this point is take the gaskets that match up with the OEM one reference and get the rest of them together. And we need to get a little bit of oil here, so you can see that I've got some oil poured into a cap, and then I'm just taking my finger and lubricating these gaskets. And that's because it makes it a little bit easier to slide in, plus it adds a layer of protection for those gaskets that are, metal to metal contact. And these are kind of like what I would say, like the cushions of the gaskets. It's what keeps it centered within the plenum, as well as the fuel rail. So we'll open it up, a couple kits here, start getting them together. Yeah, and so these bushings comparably end up being a little too big, so we end up having to just match up the correct size. And we're just going to put them together. So it's pretty basic. I'll include kind of like a diagram here within the video so you can see how these gaskets align. If I recall correctly from putting these together, there is one at the very top, one at the very bottom, and then 2 in the middle. And so it's pretty obvious how they go. And if you have your old injectors that you've taken out, if you reference one of those and just kind of take a picture of it so that when you go back and reassemble them, you have that'll be pretty straightforward. But I'll go ahead and include a picture of the diagram from the shop manual so you can see which ones get the oil and which ones don't, plus kind of how they go. And I'm just now putting that little bit of oil on the outside of those gaskets. Or sorry, the O-rings. We'll just put a little bit of oil on those O-rings, not the gaskets. And then we're all set. It's pretty simple. And then we just get them all reassembled here, and then we'll transition over to actually installing them. All right, well, this is where I discover that the O-ring at the bottom doesn't actually fit. It kind of crumples up, like I said, and then prevents it from inserting all the way. So I sourced one from some Harbor Freight O-ring gaskets that I had. And you can pick these up pretty cheap. I think the entire kit of like 250 of them is like $10. And so they're good to have them on hand in the various different sizes, because what I found in addition is that OEM gaskets and O-rings are getting harder and harder to come by. So at some point, it's not a bad idea just to keep a couple on hand. Yeah, the binding is really what I'm going in depth in talking about here, just because it wasn't quite obvious at first, but then it became quite obvious that they weren't going down all the way into the hole. Plus, the fact that if you try to cram that O-ring in there, it's probably going to break. It's probably going to not create a good seal. And then you're going to end up having issues down the road where you're going to have to take everything apart again. And we're pretty far in, I would say, on the engine. It's not something that you couldn't do within a couple hours, because generally anything is easy to break down on the top end of the engine. But it's the fact that you would be leaking fluid, and the fluid is fuel, and that there could be a potential for it to catch fire. And obviously you're going to pressure check everything when you're done. But when you get the right O-ring, it really just inserts fairly easy.
And the gasket is probably 10 times better than what I had. The only problem is now I need 6 of these, and I don't think I do.
So what you need to do is basically insert them all into the holes, and then you slot the fuel rails down on top of them.
So now I've got the last 2 that I need to install.
Yep, and you just put the fuel rails back on, which I'm not going to go into, but it's pretty obvious. You just set them down on top, and then put the 2 bolts in, and then you cycle the fuel pump a couple times with the ignition and make sure that there's no leaks. So that's pretty much it. Hope you enjoyed.